Welcome back to Athlete Enlightened right here on Riot Radio. And today we're going to be talking about essentially what makes up somebody winning versus somebody losing in terms of like athletics or competition, any type of sports where there's an element of competing against another individual. And I want to really hone in on like what is that difference that you can generally implement some kind of change to make your, let's say, progress or your development reach over that of your competition. So almost like, you probably have heard like clips of like Goggins talking about like, oh yeah, the mindset that separates like a winner from a loser, or like basically that championship mindset of what it takes to actually like overcome the opponent, especially like if you're very evenly matched, where it's almost like I have to find what I haven't given yet in terms of being in this fight or being in this race or whatever you're doing in terms of some kind of competitive athletic aspect. So we'll get into that today. I'm just kind of, taking my time to ease into this topic because there are a lot of different aspects which we can explore. We've already really covered mentality quite a bit on this channel. And one of the things I want to focus in on today are actually goal setting and actually how one illustrates or outlines, rather, how you go about achieving your goals and how those goals then translate into your progress. So maybe we'll start with actually the first image up and we'll just give the brief overview of what they outline a lot of times. So SMART goals, I'm sure you've all heard of them. So basically the idea is that you have a goal that is you can outline very clearly, one that has specifics to it. So I want to be able to do 50 push-ups, right? So, and then, check off all the things along the list. So is it specific enough? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? So like, let's say you're somebody, even if we look outside of fitness, let's say you're somebody who is, you don't have an active income. You might be considered like poor or not having a lot of money. To say like, okay, well, my SMART goal is to become a billionaire. That's a pretty big jump, right? So you want to make sure it's achievable. So that's what the A stands for, right? So even in fitness, if you want to go from like benching the bar to like benching 300 pounds, that's a big jump, right? It's not very realistic, right? But if you say, oh, I want to go from benching, I don't know, like, 170 or 200 to 300, that's a lot less of a gap, right? So you want to almost like visualize building the bridge, right? That's how you should kind of look at these things in terms of approaching your goals and achieving them, really. It's that you want to build a bridge that you can walk across to your goals, and you want to make the distance between the two sides of the bridge as short as possible. I'm sure you guys have seen movies where you have like the rocky bridge out in the middle of the forest, right? Or like the bridge made of like wood and like rope and stuff like that is not very sturdy, and there's a long gap between the two ends of like the cliffs or whatever, right? But if you made that gap a lot shorter, you'd be much more inclined to walk across that bridge that doesn't seem so secure, right? So the idea is that you're shortening the gap between two things, and this is really where the importance of goal setting comes in, right? So like I said, you want to set a goal that's within your achievable range, right? So even something as simple as, oh, I want to, go from like bench pressing like, I don't know, like 175 to 200. That's an achievable goal, right? So there's your aspect there. Relevant. You want to make it relevant to what you're actually doing. Make sure that, it's encompassed within the same like concept or whatever. Time bound, so you want to make sure that it's achieved within a specific time frame. Let's say in 3 months I want to achieve this goal, right? So I have 3 months from right now to achieve this goal, and then that's where all the pieces of this list really come in. Is it achievable to attain this in like this certain time frame, right? So, and once you start looking at things through that guide, that like basically if I look at things through, is this measurable? Is this achievable? Is this, whatever? Then you can kind of start to see, okay, well, yeah, this is a realistic goal. And once you achieve that, you set a next goal, the next goal, and the next goal, and that's how you lead to progress, right? Me, I'm somebody who, I'm not very good with actually setting goals myself in terms of, this whole outline plan. But the thing that I do implement is aim to have milestones or markers along the way, right? So if you go from doing dips with 145 plate to 245 plates, that's a big jump, right? And you can almost outline, okay, well, the second plate, that's a milestone or that's a goal that I have achieved now, and I could quantify that based on my overall progress, right? So the idea is that you are developing a system in which you can track your progress. And then when you look back, instead of not having any goals and say, oh, well, I've been going to the gym and, I haven't really achieved anything, or, maybe this is a waste of time, you look back and you say, okay, well, I've achieved this, and you check things off on the list, right? And this is why even in daily life, especially in things like business, a lot of times it's so imperative to just write all the stuff down that you have to get done, almost like a checklist or a to-do list or whatever, right? Why do people find that so helpful? Is not only for the concept that helps you to remember these things and it keeps you accountable in some sense, but also when you check it off, you can see your progress and see how far you've come, right? So, and that is where the aspect of structure comes in, right? Everybody is saying these days about the gym, oh, it's all about discipline, blah, blah, blah. You don't need motivation, you need discipline. I will always say you need both, right? You need one to encourage you to keep going when the progress is, let's say, it's still coming along, but you don't feel that genuine fire inside yourself that's saying oh, well, this is something I'm excited to do. I'm excited to go to the gym, blah, blah, blah. You will have that discipline that says, oh, well, I need to go because I have this goal that I've outlined and I need to make sure I achieve the goal, right? So that's a discipline. Motivation is the thing that helps you overcome the certain hurdles. Oh, well, I want to do 2 plates on dips, or I want to get from 175 bench to 200 or whatever, but I've only gone up 5 or 10 pounds or whatever it is. So maybe you're at you're 5 pounds away from the goal, so you're at 195 or something like that on the bench, but you're you're maxing out, right? Motivation is the thing that is going to get you over that hurdle, because at that point it becomes a more mental thing, because you're approaching your limit at that point in time, right? So, and that almost comes back to the basis of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where it was strength versus power, right? So in any case, we'll go on to the next image and we'll actually look at these a bit more in depth. And are we able to get the next image up there? Thank you. So here we can see just another outline of basically each part of the goal setting. So specific, clearly state your goal, measurable, ensure that you're, okay, let me start over from the beginning. Specific, clearly state your goal, measurable, ensure you can measure success. Yeah. Okay, it's far away for me to read, so if you guys watching are wondering why I'm pausing so much, attainable, set your goal, you can achieve. So like I said, make sure it's something within reach. It's not too big of a gap. It's a lot easier to make your first million than go from having no money to being a billionaire. So remember, small things at a time, right? So relevant, set goals relevant to your career or education. So basically make sure that it's relevant to whatever you're doing. If we're talking about the gym, which in this case we are, make sure it's relevant to fitness and make sure it's something that's actually playing an impact, right? It's not just something I don't know, download, weight loss tracker app on phone or something like that, right? It's maybe relative, but it's not directly related to your goal, right? So make sure everything that you are incorporating is relevant to what you're doing. Time based, so set a deadline or a date of completion in which you can say, okay, well, in 3 months time I have to achieve this, right? This is what needs to be done at this point, right? So I think this is even important for stuff, like I said, can be used in more than just like, lifting weights or whatever, or in athletics. The reason I use athletics is because obviously, this channel is called Athlete Enlightened, hence the name. But one of the things that is the main concept of this episode is, how do I win? What gives me that edge over the opponent, right? And I think the thing is, genuinely, it's mindset. And, it's going to come down to the heat of the moment a lot of times. Can you push the weight or not, right? There's no planning that can account for that burning willpower you need in that moment, right? It's almost like Rocky 4. If you've ever seen Rocky 4, you see at the end of the movie, like, it just comes down basically like almost like a street fight, like in the ring, like between Rocky and Drago. That's basically what it comes down to in a lot of like heat of the moment instances, in terms of like, combat sports, or in terms of, like racing and track and field or whatever. It comes down to like who has that like little bit extra gas in the moment to propel them over like the opponent, right? So ensuring that you have that kind of mentality, I would say, is the main thing that gives you that edge. But since, I can't exactly teach mentality, it's something that you either cultivate or you don't cultivate, and it's completely up to you. Like, I can't basically elaborate on that, but what I can give you are other things that assist you with building that mindset, such as goal setting, and such as implementing a way to look at things through your viewpoint that empowers you and propels you in a way that maybe the opponent is not necessarily propelled, right? You even see it all the time in combat sports. If, like, one of the fighters is like, his mind is not there, and like, he's like, concerned about this or that, or thinking about too much, he's tense, and he gets hit by a bad shot that he maybe would not got hit with, and he goes down, right? And that's the end of the fight most of the time, right? But in other cases, when you see like fighters calm, relaxed, he set his goals, he achieved them, he showed up to training, XYZ, and he's completed all those things, you feel confident within yourself that, okay, I'm gonna go in there, whatever you maybe say, I'm gonna knock the guy out with one punch or something like that, or inside this round or whatever, like, and I'm obviously exaggerating. Typically they don't go in there and knock him out with one punch, but it has happened. If you ever watch like UFC, like, Conor versus Aldo or whatever, like, hits him with one punch. Aldo got hit by a shot where he was all tensed up, and he went down, right? So this is the same basis of this, right? But if you're training, if you're at the top of your game, if you have all those things behind you, then that fuels your mindset to, okay, I'm relaxed, I know I'm prepared, whatever, right? You're ready for the opponent's moves, right? So you can feel that within yourself. A lot of times too, it is about letting go. I feel like the biggest thing with like determining who's gonna win in a like combat sports situation or some other kind of sport is really your ability to let go of things, and just like, like, for example, let the hands fly, right? So, or let, like, get out of your own head, right? Same thing with like running. There's so much science now proving like the emotions and feelings that you feel in a moment, especially during physical activity, impact your ability to actually perform at your like peak optimal level, right? So essentially what I'm saying is, like, if you're thinking of like, moments of distress while you're running, that's going to take energy away from your body's ability to genuinely tap into that deep level of energy that is within yourself, because your body feels weak when you experience those emotions that do not feel pleasant, or recall memories that are genuinely not assisting your overall development, right? Contrastly, if you're, reflecting on emotions that make you inspire and push you forward and lift you up and make you feel lighter, and that, oh yeah, like, I'm having a good time. I'm excited. I want to compete. I want to push myself. I want to see who's, going to come out on top between me and this other person. Excuse me. That's all aspects that really relate to you getting that edge, right? Because you have your basically you have your emotions and your mental faculties or facilities. You have your emotions and your mental facilities backing you up, right? Why this is so important too is because like the only thing you really have with you in this world is like yourself, right? And the biggest part of that is your mentality and how you view the world, and how that actually governs a lot of things more than most people realize. And I always make the analogy even to like, the timeline and Back to the Future and all this stuff, right? If your perception change at some point, if your perception changes on something, your actions start to change. Because if you say, well, this is like, let's say, I don't know, let's say you're evaluating a habit of yours. Let's say like scrolling on TikTok or something like this, right? And you say, oh, well, this is not beneficial to me. I think I should, cut this out of my routine, whatever. And once you implement that, you say, okay, well, like, this is not benefiting me. I understand that. Okay, I'm not going to spend time doing this, right? You spend that time doing something else and you apply your actions towards that thing, and that genuinely benefits you down that avenue in life, right? And you might do something like pick up a new skill, a new hobby, build a business, whatever, with that time that you've cut out, that you've not decided to waste now. And doing that on a long enough time frame will change the overall trajectory of your life, because you might say, oh, well, I've created this multi-million-dollar business now, or I've picked up the skill that makes me a more formidable opponent in pretty much all of human endeavors, right? So let's say it's something like, even like, taking up the gym, right? Like, going to the gym instead of like scrolling on TikTok or doing workout or exercise, right? Oh, I'm able to do, 50 push-ups. I wasn't able to do that before, right? And then that affects your health. That affects the ability that your body is able to actually like, or the efficiency of your body. It affects the overall efficiency of your body for it to actually apply itself to more things in the world, and apply itself more, I would say, consciously and in a healthier mindset. Because as we know, mind and body are connected. You feel better. You have more faculties, or you have more facilities behind you in terms of all of the stuff that is assisting you. So your mentality, whatever, right? All of these little pieces come together and they say, hey, like, now that you have implemented these things that are better in your life, the trajectory is going up, right? So, but contrastly, if you do something like go to the gym and then immediately after you scroll on TikTok, it's like it's going up and then it's going down, it's going up and it's going down, and there's not a clear direction, right? But let's say you go to the gym and then you come home and have a nice meal, and then, you're unwinding after and relaxing from the stresses of your day, and then you go home and then you go to your bed and have a nice sleep. Those are all in the upward spiral, right? Upward spiral. So yeah, those are all in the upward spiral range. So what I was really elaborating on is you want to make your directions like clear, basically, when you're taking up any of these things, right? Especially if you're attempting to beat somebody else in your same sport, you want to do the things that he is not doing or she is not doing, right? Like even like Mike Tyson, when he was at the top of his game, he would get up like early in the morning, like, while it's still dark out, and go running. Why? Because it gives you that mental edge over the opponent, because he knows the opponent is not doing that, right? Same thing with anything else. Any little tip or trick that gives you the edge over somebody else it doesn't matter if it like literally helps you or not. If you were to do the training at that time or some other time in the day, it's more the mental aspect of it, right? Why do athletes have such superstitions around carrying like some kind of like lucky thing in their pocket, or having some kind of like ritual that they do before like they engage in a sport? It's because it gives them a mental edge over the opponent. They feel like, oh, if this is a lucky, it doesn't matter if it is or is not, you know? You're placeboing your effect, you're you're placeboing effect yourself in a way that assists you with whatever goal you're trying to achieve, right? Being delusional towards your goal in any way that genuinely benefits you will never take anything away from your progress, because it is built on the concept that everything you're doing is to assist yourself with achieving that goal, right? And as long as it's not detrimental to your progress, why not use it, right? It doesn't matter if it's placebo or not, right? It's the same thing with, like, I don't know if we talked about this in recent weeks, but like the concept of like going to the doctor and placeboing yourself better. There's a whole bunch of studies that show, oh yeah, people have gotten better from placebo alone. What does it matter if you cure the illness with, like the actual medicines or placebo? As long as you get the same end result, it doesn't really matter, does it? So I think the same thing goes for like a lot of this stuff as well. If you can placebo yourself to the result that you want, and placebo is a term I don't really like to use, because I do believe that there is energy and there is entanglement and there is an aspect of consciousness. I'm not going to get into the double slit experiment here, but there is an element of you focusing on that intention and having faith in it, and then it coming to fruition, coming to pass, and seeing it clearly and visualizing it in your mind. There is an element of that. So in essence, what I'm saying is that if you truly apply yourself to say, okay, well, anything that is going to assist me, I'm going to utilize as long as it resonates with me, that will never take anything away from your progress, right? In essence, maybe we should move on to the next image, and we can really hone in on what we talked about earlier, where it's almost like what you need in that moment when you're in the ring and the guy's giving you a tough time, and you're halfway through the fight, you're in round 6, and you're thinking, well, I couldn't clobber him like I thought I was going to, in terms of like even you see, like, if you ever watch a lot of like old time like fights, like Mike Tyson fights and stuff like that, you'll see guys like can't remember their names. He beat all of them up. I think he actually knocked out Jose Ralph, but all of these, like Tony Tucker, for example, right? Like Mike Tyson, when he fought Tony Tucker, it went the whole 12 rounds, right? So all of these guys who, like, he couldn't go in there and knock him out with one punch, the mindset throughout the fight is, okay, well, I couldn't do it the way I typically do it, of going in there and knocking out the guy with one punch. So you have to change your strategy somewhat during the fight, or say, okay, well, what level of energy do I need to go to actually like turn this in my favor, right? Do I need to wear the guy down with body punches? Do I need to like switch up my tactic? Do I need to like be pot shotting and counter punching more? But the concept that I'm referring to is this growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, because a growth mindset will say, okay, well, I need to alter the way I'm doing things in this fight or in this sport. I'm just gonna use fighting because it's very all across the board in terms of analogies, in terms of drawing these parallels. It makes it very clear. So like boxing or fighting, right? When you're in the ring, you say, okay, well, what do I have to do in order to beat this guy? What do I have to change or do within myself? What do I have to change about my own style in order to overcome this challenge, right? The fixed mindset is that of, okay, well, I'm just going to go in there and keep doing the same things that I've been doing and hoping another result comes out of this, right? But the growth mindset says, okay, well, how can I change or expand my ability in order to overcome this obstacle, right? So a lot of it and you even see this, like, I always make reference to like animes like, like Dragon Ball and stuff like that. You even see like in a fight, like if you saw Dragon Ball Super and you see the end of the series, spoiler alert if you don't want to watch this, like mute the next minute or something. But like, when Goku's fighting Jiren, and like, unlocks like Ultra Instinct and all this stuff, right? He was pushed to that limit where, like, in the middle of the fight, he's resolved within himself, like, okay, well, like, this is it, if I don't like basically achieve a next level of strength or power here, then we're donezo, right? So basically that's the type of athlete you have to be in terms of engaging in some kind of sport, whether that's like combat sports like MMA and fighting, or whether it's track and field and you're in the middle of a race. You have to resolve within yourself to push past that limit, to say, what do I need to put in to overcome this obstacle, to overcome this hurdle, and beat the opponent, right? So, and that's the thing, that once you typically connect within yourself about, like, okay, well, what do I have to give up, or what do I have to change about the way I'm doing things in order to succeed, you take the aspect of concern off the opponent, and it really becomes about, how can I make myself a more capable fighter, or how can I make myself a more capable athlete, or how can I make myself a more capable runner, whatever it is. Or even like, as we're referring to with the gym, right? Like, okay, well, I saw my friend achieve, like, being able to bench 200. Now I'm at 195. What do I have to give within inside of myself to reach that same pinnacle, right? So, and a lot of times it's something, like, almost like fleeting or mundane, like, basically having some kind of emotion or some kind of aspect of like some kind of emotional charge or emotional charge situation or memory that really propels you over that hurdle, right? It's like, when people say dig deep, it's really like dig deep within yourself, because you're trying to find some kind of emotion that resonates with you achieving this pinnacle, like pushing that big weight or whatever. Like, what do I need to push that big weight within myself? Like, is it trauma? Is it, how good it's gonna feel like once you achieve that which you are seeking, in terms of, whether that's a physique or some kind of maybe other I don't know, pinnacle is not even related to fitness. Maybe it's something about your life. Like, maybe it's even someone. Love can be a powerful motivator as well. So strong emotions and strong feelings really are attributed to this concept. And, like, the other thing is, like, even rage is a powerful emotion, right? To bring up Mike Tyson again, because we've already brought him up, is that, he used to say that anger is like something that can anger is something that can cook your food or burn down the whole house, right? So being able to wield it almost as somebody would a sword, and knowing when to unsheath the emotion, is important, right? So, because even if you experience that emotion and you can tap into it, it's about using it to its fullest ability and using it most efficiently, right? So I would say that that's kind of the basis of a lot of this, right? Is that you need to tap into some kind of deeper level. You need to tap into some kind of emotion within yourself which propels you over that hurdle. And this was really what I was talking about in terms of, like, mentality and mindset around what it takes to overcome the opponent. But there's not too much I can really elaborate on with this stuff, because, like I said, it is very much within yourself. You have to resolve inside yourself to say, okay, well, this is what I need here, right? So nobody can really, there's not one thing fits all, one mindset fits all for these kind of things, because what inspires and motivates somebody will not motivate somebody else, right? So like if somebody said to me like, oh yeah, well, like if you go to the gym, like you can be in great aesthetic shape, it's like, I already am in great aesthetic shape, so like that's not really such a driving factor for me. But somebody could say that, oh well, you're gonna get stronger and you're gonna get this, blah blah blah. And if that's what your end goal is, to just get stronger, to get bigger or whatever, then that might appeal to you if that's more towards what your goal is, genuinely about, what you are attempting to achieve within inside of yourself, right? So in any case, my point is that, to not ramble on about this anymore, is essentially that you have to cultivate that mindset within inside of yourself that really is about, okay, what do I need that I haven't given yet? Is it I have to release some kind of block within inside myself? Is it doubt? Is it fear? Is it an emotion that does not serve me? Is it some piece of trauma? Is it some kind of mental block? Is it a cycle that I'm cautious about repeating, or that I'm worried about, or any kind of concern within you really just has to be let go of, right? A lot of time fear is just an illusion of the mind that is meant to keep you safe from things. It's not real. And the biggest thing about the world is that this illusion projects so strongly because it's one of the most survival instincts. Actually, it is the most survival instinct on the planet, fear, which is why people are so easily manipulated by fear. Is because, oh, well, what if I fail? It's like, what's gonna happen? Like, nothing worse can happen than if you do not try, right? So that's the biggest thing, right? Is that you just need to resolve to try, resolve to put in effort, resolve to simply make the decision that, okay, I'm gonna do it. Doesn't matter whether I win or lose, I'm gonna do everything I can for my win, and I'm gonna focus on winning. But ultimately, I just gotta go in there and do what I gotta do, right? And just put everything else out of your mind, right? And just focus on where you want to go, right? So in essence, a lot of it too is about kind of the highlighted path. I think the image that I put is actually not one of the ones in this list, but in essence, what I mean by this is, you've heard the quote before that there's somebody who loves the journey and somebody who loves the destination. The person who loves the journey will walk farther, or do more, put in more effort than the person who loves the destination, right? Because they're just seeing it as a means to an end, or something to get somewhere, right? But if you genuinely say that, hey, I'm on this path, I'm gonna enjoy this path, I'm gonna make it, worthwhile, all of these aspects, then you find that you reach the destination faster than you thought you would have, and it doesn't become as trying because you were enjoying it the whole time, right? Like you got so caught up in the concept of doing that thing that you forgot about the time that had passed on the way to that goal, right? So if you acquire that kind of mentality around things, where it's about, almost like falling in love with the training to an aspect, right? Which is why, there's this whole gym culture nowadays where it's like, guys, you shouldn't be getting in a relationship. You should just be going to the gym, right? So this is where this comes from, really. It comes from this concept that you fall in love with going to the gym. You fall in love with getting stronger, and you fall in love with that version of yourself you want to become. So it pushes you to a new level of strength, and a new level of power, and a new height overall. So we'll go to the next image and we'll look at the list that really relates to each of these two. And you can see here that, under growth mindset has challenges help me grow. I can learn anything I want to. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. Feedback is constructive. That's the growth mindset. That's the one that you need. It's the mindset of a champion, right? The fixed mindset is I avoid challenges. I can either do it or I can't. I get frustrated when I fail. Feedback is personal. So you can kind of see the contrast between these two mindsets. One's about how can I frame things in a way that benefits me, and one is either fixed and just about seeing it through the same lens that you've always had, or lacking any kind of adaptation to alter your perception in a way that might benefit you, right? So in any case, my point is that specifically around this is that it's all about your ability to really say, how can I frame things in a way that benefits me, right? So, and the thing is too, that with all of this stuff surrounding like mindset and whatnot, it is personal, and it does have to be about what do I truly believe, because it's not something you can genuinely fake, right? So, like, I think the biggest thing too is like a lot of people see things on surface level and they want to do it, or they think it's easy, or they think if they get inside their head enough, that substitutes for like training or like consistency or any of these things that are like the very foundational aspects before even the mindset shift in the midst of battle that relates to you overcoming the opponent. Is that, you know, I even had people asking me like all the way back when I was in high school, like, oh yeah, you know, how do you, you know, get muscles like that? Or how do you like, you know, get so big or strong to be able to lift this weight? It's just like, I just been doing it a long time, right? There's no secret formula. There's no magic pill. There's no shortcut, right? It's just about showing up every day, doing that same thing over and over. Doesn't mean you can't take breaks if they're scheduled, right? Once in a while, it actually does benefit you to take a break from the gym for like a week or so, right? Just because it will allow you time to recover. And when you come back to the gym, not only are you fueled and, you know, wanting to blow off some energy, but also you're possibly even stronger than you were before because you've had time to rest, right? And engaging other things, right? So also remember that the body and the mind accomplishes a lot in the background, and that's why things like lucid dreaming and astral projection, all of these like conscious dream modalities are so important at some levels if you can implement them. I'm not saying that you have to in order to achieve, you know, any pinnacles of success you want, but I will say that they do assist you for the reason that typically your mind and your body are always doing things in the background, whether you realize it or not. So making sure that you program into the background what you want the system to be running. It's almost like a PC, right? If you have like a program running in the background, you want to make sure that's actually assisting your computer's processing, right? You want to make sure that it's not just running some like garbage software or some stupid program that you don't really need in terms of like what you're attempting to do on your computer, or it affecting its efficiency or whatever, right? So it's all really about the concept of, again, how can I make this assist me? How can I implement things to allow my body to have the opportunity to implement them freely? And through that, I will see progress, right? I will see results, right? Why? Because I trust my body to do that. I trust it to know that these things need to be done, but I also must tell it, right? So it's why things with athletes, even too, like visualization, affirmation, all this stuff is so important, because you're giving the body direction towards what you want it to do. And that's why it's not just you repeat an affirmation one time and it's like one and done, but you have to repeat it multiple times and over 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 again, because it becomes self-hypnosis. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? I win in everything I do. You repeat that 1,000 times, you're going to feel more confident to win than you would have if you did not, right? So, and that's the basis of this stuff, right? That you would be surprised how much of the world just really is mental in terms of even like daily things that you might encounter. So I would say that the most important thing to do is like make sure you have your foundation, make sure you have your routine, you know, all of the aspects that classify your discipline the structure of your routines and whatever. And then when it comes to overcoming blockages or overcoming barriers in terms of, oh, well, this thing is hard, or, I'm up against this guy and he's really skilled, or my normal style is not working, whatever, you can overcome that because you can say, okay, what do I need to give that I haven't given yet? What do I need to implement that I haven't tried? Like, who am I as a fighter that makes me formidable compared to somebody else who thinks that they can get in here with me and do the same thing I do? Especially if you guys are in the same weight class or you have the same stats or whatever, right? It's an even playing field, right? There's something I really like, actually, and because the viewership is so low on most of this stuff, I'm just gonna always do this show the way I feel like it. So if I want to make a anime reference, I'm gonna make it. One of the things I like about, if you've ever seen one of the OG series Beyblade Metal and you're familiar with the character Ryuga, one of my favorite scenes of him is when he's battling Kyoya for the second time, and he's like, let's see now, the conditions are equal, right? And he's like, in that case, and then the volcano blows up behind him. He's like, so from here on it will be decided by the difference in the power of the blader, is that right? So this is kind of what I like about this kind of mentality thing, that it's about, do you know your own ability and can you connect with it enough to actually overcome the opponent? Or are you just somebody who's learning the skill for the first time and you've really not perfected it or made it your own, right? Because if what determines the difference between you and your opponent in battle is the skill, and all your fight stats are the same, your reach advantage is the same, your height is the same, your weight is the same, whatever, all of these stats are the same. Let's just say you're fighting somebody within your weight class, and it really comes down to who is the more skilled fighter. Is it me or is it the other guy? And it's not about anything physical at that point. It's about who has the better skill in this area of endeavor. Who is the more skilled fighter? Who's the more skilled boxer? Who's the more skilled runner, right? And once you resolve within yourself, what do I need to overcome this person? Because not everybody's opponent will have that mindset of, that same question, asking themselves, what do I need to overcome this opponent? Typically, it's not you and your opponent both asking yourselves the same questions, because most people do not have this mindset, right? So though I will say that athletes typically tend to have this more than people who are not athletes, and that can even be viewed with what we talked about recently with the anterior mid-cingulate cortex and doing things that are difficult, challenging, etc. But the basis is that if you have that mindset and can say in that moment, what do I need to overcome the opponent? Chances are the opponent does not have that same mindset. They're just thinking that, okay, well, I just got to wear this guy down, or I got to do the same things I'm doing, or whatever. They're not adapting or prepared to adapt. Then typically those are the people who lose, right? It's the people who can adapt their fighting style, and that's how you win, right? So even like I was talking about in Mike Tyson fights, typically he's able to see who I'm going to be able to knock out in the first 1 or 2 rounds, and who is somebody who is I'm going to have to go the whole 12 round distance with, right? And just wear them down with body punches, make sure I'm being a smart fighter, make sure I collect my points, make sure I'm doing well on the scorecards, make sure I'm winning enough rounds. So it's also about knowing your opponent, right? So, or rather knowing the sport and knowing the situation, the environment you're in, right? In any case, that's kind of the basis of today's episode. I don't want to ramble on for too long, because the basis is that you have that willpower within you to do those things, right? I'll say something that I think I was saying last week, and I was saying this actually on my channel. Check it out, Sword of Mercury. I was saying this the other day when I was filming a video, and I was saying that, even in the context of doing things that are hard equating to people being strong, right? If we look at simple things and a lot of people might not think this is a transferable skill or transferable at all, but I would guarantee you that it is. even looking at things like, how you view relationships, do I view relationships as something fleeting with like, just like lower like sexual emotions, and I lust over somebody and I don't have any genuine like, connection or feeling or love for that person? Or do I genuinely love that person and that's why I'm with them and why I want to engage in all these things? And that really differentiates a lot about who you are and what you'll be able to achieve in all the other realms of your life. Because if you genuinely engage in a relationship because you love somebody, everybody would probably have to agree that loving somebody is more difficult compared to lusting over someone. And if doing things that are hard makes you stronger, then that must mean that doing things that are easy makes you weaker, right? So if you think about these things, especially in terms of the 21st century and relationships, it really puts into your mind that, okay, well, if I continue to love, regardless of what all the other morons are doing out there, and I continue to stick to my principles, and I continue to stick to my ideals, and I resolve to do those things within myself, because I know that it's not the easy way out, that maybe in this case the opponent would be taking, then I become stronger. Not only do I become stronger, I become more formidable, and that in the end you will be rewarded, guarantee it. It's like going to the gym and lifting the weight that you thought was maybe going to be more challenging than the weight you were comfortable with last week. You will get bigger, you will get stronger, you will get faster, you will be healthier, you will have all these aspects genuinely on your side, right? So the same thing that happens even engaging in love, right? People who are just lusting over people, you're weak. Like I don't need to explain it, right? So, and this is kind of the basis of these transferable parts of your mindset that translate into your sports, into your other endeavors, into the gym, whatever it is, right? Because having that mindset that I'm prepared to do the hard thing if it means that I genuinely believe in it, then you will do that and you will win. That's as simple as it is. And hear me now. Always know this: if you're competing against somebody in something, such as combat sports, other sports, whatever it is, if you genuinely try your best, if you genuinely within you, your whole soul and heart is fused to that concept, you can't lose. And I was making this analogy, maybe I should just say illustrating this concept the other day too in the video, was that a lot of times one of the things you see is, for example, somebody just learning to fight or somebody learning to box for the first time. They're saying like, oh yeah, I'm going fighting, or I'm going to the gym to train and fighting, whatever. But on a long enough time frame, that becomes an integrated part of who you are, right? If you've been training like in martial arts for 10 years, you don't say, oh yeah, I'm going fighting. You say I'm a fighter, right? And you associate that terminology or that concept with your identity. It's same thing for people who say like, oh, I'm a dancer, or I'm a gymnast, or I'm a fitness professional, whatever it is, I'm a weightlifter. All of these things become an integrated part of who you are in a long enough time frame, right? So it really just becomes applying yourself day after day and continuing that process. And that's the nature of the heart and soul right there, is that you fuse with that thing at some level, right? And that's why like athletes and like boxers and all these guys, they fuse with that concept. They fuse, like, I don't know if you guys ever looked into science and are familiar with fusion, but it's basically taking two things and making them one. So that's essentially what happens with you and any kind of subject that you become so entangled and in love with, that your training and your identity and your connection to that thing then become non-existent, because you become that thing. So you become that version of yourself who has been entangled with that thing. It's been integrated. So I'll leave it there for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I know I've been rambling for a bit today. It's just kind of an off day for an episode, maybe. But in any case, this has been Athlete Enlightened right here on Riot Radio. I encourage you to follow me on social media. Check out my other podcast, Moonstruck. I will link in the description below, along with my other channel, Sword of Mercury, which is ASMR. And let me know what kind of content you guys would like to see over there as well. I highly encourage you guys to follow us on DC Media Hub, as well as help support the channel by liking, subscribing, clicking the notification bell to stay up to date with all new episodes. I'm very open to any feedback you guys have, so please leave it in the comment section below if you guys enjoyed or this helped you in any way. And I will see you guys in the next episode.